I said, it once happened. Hello? I said it once happened. No, that's not what you need. When post-midnight, if I'm telling you a story, if I say once upon a time, you say, uh-huh. Hello? It once happened. There was a farmer. And this farmer was a devotee of Shiva, and he was worshipping that form of Shiva which is referred to as Bholenath, that means the innocent one, the childlike one. One day, he had a bad crop. Then he called Shiva intensely. Because Shiva was Bholenath, he appeared. And he said, Shiva, this is not good. You know nothing about farming, but you manage the rain, you manage the sunlight, and I get a bad crop. These are not your business. If you leave it in my hands, I will do it well and I will be an excellent farmer. Shiva being Bholenath, he said, all right, you manage the sunlight, you manage the rain, you manage everything. So, the farmer, the next crop, he plowed his land, put the seed and said, rain. 10 minutes, the soil got wet, stopped. Sunlight came, too much sunlight, reduced. You know the remote switch? Like that he managed. And this crop of maize came up very well, really green and thick. He was very happy. And all the cobs came up. As it is the tradition among farmers who raise maize or corn, they'll go one day when it's all grown, open and see how the grain has formed. He went, ripped it open and saw the cobs were all solid, the plants were standing bigger than ever, but within the cob there was no grain. Then again angrily he called Shiva. Shiva being Bholenath, he appeared. Then he said, what have you done? There is no grain, there's only cob, there is no grain. What have you done, Shiva? Shiva said, what have I done? I gave everything in your hands. Well, it rained on time, sunlight came on time, everything happened, the plants grew well, but why there is no maize? Why there is no grain at all? Then Shiva said, if I can say something, I would have not only brought rain, I would have made the land go dry a little bit so that the roots will search a little deeper. Then I would have put some stress on the plant by blowing wind. Then the plant would root very well, and because of that, the grain would form. But now, you treated this whole crop like your pet, and it's looking pretty, but there is no grain, what can I do? So, we've been doing this like this our farming has become like this. Slowly, we have everything except nourishment. Nourishment values in the world have dropped significantly, and for this, humanity and every other life is paying a heavy price. Shiva is also known as the Pashupati, which means he is the Lord of all living creatures. Within the soil and above the soil, all creatures are his. He is also known as Bhuteshwara, that means he is the Lord of the 5 elements. It is between the 5 elements, the organisms, the worms, insects, plants, trees, animals and human beings, the cycle of life happens. If you break any one link of this chain, the chain will fall apart, the entire chain. Any chain is only strong as its individual link. Right now, this is what we have done in our ignorance, that we are almost breaking the chain. Not the entire chain, just one link, but if you break one link, that is good enough, the chain falls apart. So, it is time we understand that the elements of earth, water, air, fire and space and every organism and life that exists here has a role in the making of who we are. Who we are is a reflection of the life that's happening within the soil. Even in terms of evolution, who we are is a consequence of what is beneath the soil. Time to pay attention to that.
இப்படி ஒரு முறை நடந்தது. ஒரு விவசாயி இருந்தார். அவர் ஒரு சிறந்த சிவபக்தராக விளங்கினார். சிவனை போலேநாத் என்கிற வடிவத்தில் அவர் வழிபட்டார். போலேநாத் என்றால் குழந்தைத்தனமானவர், மிகவும் வெகுளியானவர் என்று அர்த்தம். அவர் ஒரு நாள் சிவனை அழைத்து சொன்னார், இந்த பயிரை நீ பார்த்து கொள்கிறாய், சீதோஷ்ணங்களை எல்லாம் நீ பார்த்து கொள்ளுகிறாய், என்னுடைய பயிர் மோசமாக விளைந்திருக்கிறது பார்த்தாயா? நீ விவசாயி இல்லை, உனக்கு இதெல்லாம் தெரியாது. எனவே இந்த மழையை, சூரிய வெளிச்சத்தை எல்லாம் நான் பார்த்து கொள்ளுகிறேன் என்று சொன்னார். குழந்தைத்தனமானவராக சிவன் இருந்ததால் அவரும் ஒப்புக்கொண்டார். இவர் மழை என்று அழைத்ததுமே மழை வந்தது, வெயில் என்றதுமே வெயில் அடித்தது, மழையே நில் என்றதும் மழை நின்றது. பயிர்கள் முளைத்தன, பசுமையாக இருந்தன, எங்கும் திடமான பயிர்களை பார்க்க முடிந்தது. பொதுவாக விவசாயிகள் ஒரு நாள் என்ன செய்வார்கள் என்றால், தானியம் இருக்கிறதா என்று அந்த முகடுகளை திறந்து பார்ப்பார்கள். பயிர் முகடுகளை திறந்து பார்த்தால் தானியமே இல்லை. சிவனை அழைத்தார். போலேநாத் என்று அழைத்தவுடன் இந்த குழந்தைத்தனமான இறைவன் முன்னே தோன்றினார். ஏன் இப்படி ஆகிவிட்டது என்று கேட்டபோது சிவன் சொன்னார், நீ சூரிய வெளிச்சத்தை, மழையெல்லாம் பார்த்து கொண்டாய். என்னுடைய பொறுப்பில் இருந்திருந்தால் கொஞ்சம் பூமியை காய விட்டிருப்பேன். வேர்கள் ஆழமாக வேரூன்றி தண்ணீரை தேடி இருக்கும். அதன் மூலமாக நல்ல தானியங்கள் கிடைத்திருக்கும். நீ இந்த பயிர்களை ஏதோ ஒரு செல்லப்பிராணியை வளர்ப்பது மாதிரி வளர்த்திருக்கிறாய். அதனால்தான் இப்படி ஆகிவிட்டது என்று சொன்னார். ஏறக்குறைய இன்றைக்கு நிலைமை அப்படித்தான் இருக்கிறது. ஊட்டச்சத்தில் பெருமளவு குறைபாடு நேர்ந்திருக்கிறது. அதற்கான விலையை மனிதகுலம் மட்டுமல்ல, இந்த மண்ணில் வாழ்கிற பிற உயிரினங்களும் தந்து கொண்டிருக்கின்றன. சிவனுக்கு பசுபதி என்று பெயர். உயிரினங்கள் அனைத்துக்குமான தலைவன் என்று அதற்கு அர்த்தம். சிவனுக்கு பூதேஸ்வரன் என்றும் ஒரு பெயர் உண்டு. இந்த மண்ணில் உள்ள எல்லா உயிர்களுக்கும், பஞ்சபூதங்களுக்கும், நீர், நிலம், நெருப்பு, காற்று, ஆகாயம் அனைத்திற்கும் அவன் தலைவன். இவை அனைத்துமே ஒன்றோடொன்று தொடர்புள்ள ஒரு சங்கிலி போன்றவை. சங்கிலியினுடைய பலம் என்பது அதனுடைய கண்ணிகள் சேர்ந்திருப்பதில் இருக்கிறது. ஒரு கண்ணி உடைந்தாலும் கூட அந்த சங்கிலி அறுந்து போய்விடும். நம்முடைய பரிணாம வளர்ச்சியிலே கூட இங்கே இருக்கிற ஒவ்வொரு உயிருக்கும் நாம் யாராக இருக்கிறோமோ அப்படி இருப்பதில் ஒரு பங்கு இருக்கிறது. இந்த சங்கிலி சுழற்சியை, இந்த தொடர்ச்சியை, பரிணாமத்தினுடைய ஒரு அம்சத்தை நாம் தவறவிட்டு விடக்கூடாது.
If we wish to have some mastery over our lives, I'm essentially talking about being able to live without concern, being able to live without fear and anxiety as to what will happen with your life. To be able to live life in some sense of abandon, what is most needed is stability, balance within yourself. When I say stability, well, you can think of a mountain or a rock, that is also stability. But stillness is the ultimate stability. If you become absolutely still at the core of who you are, or in other words, if you touch the core of who you are, you will naturally be still. In this stillness, there is absolute sense of stability. Once you're rooted in this stability of stillness, then you can play your life with absolute exuberance and abandon. You can love, laugh and live strongly without any sense of what about me, because when your foundations are rooted in stillness, there shall be no such concern. Maha Shivaratri is that possibility that you're looking for on this night, that you want to touch that core within you, which is stillness.
வாழ்வில் ஒரு விதமான ஆளுமை வேண்டும் என்று சொன்னால், எனக்கு என்ன ஆகுமோ என்கிற கவலை இல்லாமல், அச்சம் இல்லாமல், பதட்டம் இல்லாமல் வாழ வேண்டும். அப்படி வாழ்வதற்கு ஒரு உறுதித்தன்மை உங்களுக்கு தேவையாயிருக்கிறது. உறுதி என்று சொன்னால் இந்த மலை, இந்த பாறை இவை கூட உறுதியாகத்தான் இருக்கின்றன. ஆனால் உச்சபட்ச உறுதி என்பது அசைவற்ற தன்மையை குறிக்கும். நீங்கள் யார் என்கிற அந்த அடிப்படை தன்மையை உங்களால் தொட முடிந்தால் அதன் விளைவாக ஏற்படக்கூடிய உறுதிதான் நிலையானது. இந்த அசைவின்மை மூலமாக வாழ்க்கையை ஆழமாக உங்களால் வாழ முடியும். வாழ்வை அன்பு செலுத்தி மகிழ்ச்சியாக சிரித்து கொண்டிருந்து ஆனந்தமாக வாழ்வது என்பது சாத்தியமாகும். ஏனென்றால் எனக்கென்ன ஆகும் என்கிற அச்சம் இல்லாமல் உங்கள் உறுதிப்பாடு மிக நிலையானதாக, நிரந்தரமானதாக இருக்கும்.
Considering the time, we will just handle one or two questions and then go into meditation. So in the next 10 minutes, all of you who are moving, if you can come and sit back, we could go through our meditative process. So these 10 to 15 minutes, let's handle a couple of questions.
Namaskaram, Sadhguru. The way you talk about Shiva, it is like a person who has walked on earth. But since childhood, I've been taught that Shiva is a god who lives in heaven. So, did Shiva incarnate from heaven?
15,000 years ago, if you lived in Delhi, when there were no roads, there were no flights, of course, If somebody came down from the Himalayan peaks and people narrated from what heights he came down, it would look like he has come down from heaven. Were there enough lore in the country, where endless number of incidents where Shiva walked the land. Whoever sent him to heaven, I don't know, because all the stories about Shiva are about what he did and what happened around him on this land, in this geography. So, whoever sent to heaven and then told you that, it's all right. People think something high means it's heaven. This is what we want to change. The source of your life is not in heaven. The source of your life is beneath your own feet, the soil. Sadhguru, you're saying this because you started Save Soil movement. No, even before we started this movement, even then, people came only from this soil and went back to this soil. This whole idea that everything that's valuable came from up there is a wrong idea. It's a criminal idea, if you ask me, because this whole idea that there is a better place to live than this is a sure way of denying your life here, ensuring that you don't live your life well here, but one day you will go somewhere else and live better. I'm saying, even if you believe that, I don't want to counter those things. I'm saying, if you want to live well in heaven, if you want to live joyfully, lovingly, wonderfully in heaven, at least you must practice it here. So, Shiva walked this land. Every incident of his life was here. So please don't send him to heaven. We were fortunate he came, and any human being is valuable to us only because of the contributions they make to our life. So his contribution is this, that he looked at the inner mechanism of the human being in a most scientific way and evolved technologies as to how you can harness the prowess of this being, how you can make this being blossom into its fullest capability or possibility. But though this happened over 15,000 years ago, the populations in the world were never really ready for methods like this. Well, a small segment of them did take it up, and this culture is replete with yogis, sages, mystics and variety of people who explored these possibilities, but still the larger population did not take to it because they did not have the necessary scientific bent of life. They fell back on belief systems, they fell back on philosophies, they fell back on ideologies, they fell back on small tricks that you can do around yourself. It is for the first time in the history of humanity, today, more people on the planet, I'm not saying all of you, more people on the planet can think more logically than ever before in the history of humanity. Now is the time for Adiyogi. Tomorrow is the time for Adiyogi. Yesterday was not so good for him. Adiyogi belongs to the future, not to the past, that's what I'm saying. Because this is the first time that human beings have started trusting technology more than heaven, more than God, more than any other entity. People have started technology more than anything else. This is the best time for yoga. this is the best time for the 112 technologies that he evolved for human beings to find their fulfillment. So the time is coming, let's make it happen.
Namaskaram, Sadhguru. Safe Soil seems to address many of the physical world problems, like hunger, nutrition, climate change. Is there any spiritual significance to Safe Soil?
First thing is, if we have to do any spiritual process, we must survive. And we must also be fed and be comfortable to even think of something beyond. If one has to seek, people are always telling me, Sadhguru, why are you coming to Delhi and meeting all the elite, rich and famous people? Why are you not going into the slums of Delhi? I say, I am not such an obscene person that I will go to the slum where they're struggling for their daily bread and tell them to pursue mukti. I will not do such a thing. When somebody's stomach is empty, first and foremost thing is to ensure that that is taken care of. So survival is nothing once it is taken care of. When it is not taken care of, it's everything. So this is the nature of life. If you do not assure that survival is happening reasonably easy for people, all spirituality will die. Yes, that's happened to this country. At one time, rich and replete with spiritual process. Today has come down significantly simply because 200, 300 years of poverty. It takes economic well-being. It takes a full stomach to be able to think beyond that. When stomach is empty, your entire life becomes about that. So it's very important, the idea of building civilizations. Why India as a civilization turned so spiritual is, for thousands of years we had stability, we had economic well-being. Because of that, naturally human beings started seeking something more than the physical. Having said that, what is the spiritual significance of Safe Soil? Well, your body and your mind, you know, these two things can either be a stepping stone to your spiritual evolution, or they can become absolute barriers for your spiritual evolution. If you sit here, if your body is so comfortable that you are not even conscious that it is here, then spiritual process is a possibility. Now we are going to go into a meditation, a simple process, but some of you, because it is not comfortable anywhere. If you sit, it's not comfortable. If you stand, it's not comfortable. If you lie down, it's not comfortable. If you make the body like this, then there'll be no spiritual possibility. So, to make the body conducive, to make the mind conducive, to look beyond its immediate needs, it's very, very important. There is sufficient nourishment and an organic energy around you which sustains you, because the body that you carry is not all yours. 60% of your body is actually microbial life, only 40% is your parental genetics. When this is the case, if you do not keep these microbial life well, all around you, their habitat is largely within the 12 to 15 inches of topsoil. If you don't keep them well, they will make sure you're not well. When you're not well, if I ask you to meditate or to you do yoga, or to seek your ultimate nature, you will not be interested. You will not be interested. So it's very, very important the physical aspects of life are well taken care of. There is a difference between tending or attending to the needs that this physical life demands and to pamper it to death. These are two different things. So that you can decide, I will not decide that. What is needed, what is more than what is needed, that is left to individual people. If you can handle it well, anything is okay. But the spiritual aspect of it is, if you say spiritual, what you're saying is, your experience of life has transcended the boundaries of your physical structure. You generally think this body is me. So soil has this power that it is a unifying force. As I said earlier, today in the name of caste, creed, race, religion, nationality, how many conflicts? Endless. So soil is one unifying force. So this ecological movement that we have started now is not different from the spiritual movement of wanting to create a conscious planet that we have done for nearly 40 years now. Because soil is also a unifying force. If I say, you are one with this cosmos, you have no context. In soil, there is unity. You can clearly see the very body that you carry is soil. A person sitting next to you is also made of the same stuff. And when you're done with this life, you go back to the soil. So soil can push you into that place where you experience life beyond the boundaries of your physical nature. If you experience life beyond the boundaries of your own physicality, that's called spiritual. So spiritual process can easily happen. We don't want to use this, we don't want to do this save soil movement just as ecological process. We want to make sure people also evolve by doing this. People see unity in life around them, not just intellectually, experientially also is possible. As you know, most yogis always chose to live in mountains or mountain caves because they want to be covered with earth on all sides. Those who did not find caves dug holes and holes in the earth and sat in it because they found being in the soil, they could transcend the limitations of their physical body. So here is a possibility that I don't want you to dig a hole or search for a cave. There are other ways to do it, we will see how. We will unfold that later. But yes, save soil is not just an ecological process, save soil is not just a survival process for us, it can also be a very powerful spiritual process for us.
Namaskaram, Sadhguru. Shiva is known to have grieved when he lost Sati. How can a divine being like Shiva get stuck in moh and become sad?
Oh. What did you want him to do? In an unfortunate incident, his wife is burnt alive. Someone that you hold dear, when you see they're charred to death and you know fire doesn't kill you sweetly. So, when your dear wife is burnt alive, what do you want him to do? And if he did not grieve, I would not consider him divine at all. That's very the way of the inanimate. Even trees bleed when some grief happens to them in their own way. Animals grieve. You think Shiva is less than that? No, his grief is very intense. But he is not entangled in it. Yes, a short period of grief, intense grief happened to him, and we value him for that because he is not inhuman. He's a superhuman, if you ask me. So everything is heightened in him. ஐயா கொஞ்சம் வண்டி அதுக்கப்புறம் பார்த்துக்கலாம். I think அவர் யாரு கொஞ்சம் அனௌன்ஸ்மெண்ட் பண்றவங்க கொஞ்சம் மெதுவா கொஞ்சம் இருக்க சொல்லாமே. கொஞ்சம் உட்கார்ந்துருங்க எல்லாருமே, ஒரு தியானம் பண்ணிக்கலாமா? We will go through a meditative process. Please sit down, everybody, please. கொஞ்சம் யாரும் சொல்லலாமே அவருக்கு. ப்ளீஸ். ஐயா போலீஸ் ஐயா, கொஞ்சம் நேரம் பேச வேண்டாங்கய்யா, எல்லாம் உட்காந்துக்கிட்டோம். ப்ளீஸ் எல்லாம் உட்காந்துடலாமே கொஞ்சம். நம்ம என்ன பண்ணுறோன்னா இப்போ இப்படி உள்ளங்காய் மேல் முக்கமாக வச்சுட்டு கண்ணு மூடி நம்ம முகம் லேசாக மேல் முக்கமாக வச்சு இப்படி உட்காந்துக்கணும். அதுக்கப்புறம் இந்த ஒரு